Greetings and welcome to Yarnspirations. I'm Mary Beth Temple for Hooked for Life, and in this video we're going to take a closer look at the Stack Up Blocks knit blanket. Now this is a beautifully textured piece. It's all knits and purls and texture stitches, and you can follow along using the text instructions or the chart. To make it, you're going to need 2 balls of Caron 1 pound, and a size US 8 or 5mm circular knitting needle 36 inches long, or size needed to obtain gauge. Optionally, you might want a couple of stitch markers, and I'll talk about that later. Just 2, but that's not mandatory, that's just an option. So please like this video, subscribe to the channel for fresh content weekly on knitting, crocheting, and other yarny stuff. Click on the link below to download the free pattern. While you're down there, please click on a button to follow us on the social media platform of your choice. If you want us to see what you're working on, please use hashtag Yarnspirations. But let's get started with the blanket. So the first thing you're going to do is cast on 170 stitches. I have a smaller swatch than that, so it fits on the camera. You're going to work back and forth in rows, and you're going to knit 5 rows. And on the last row that you knit, you're going to increase 8 stitches evenly across the last row. Now, I do not like to put my increases in the border, so I don't want them in the first or last 5 stitches. That's not a deal breaker, that's just how I like to do it. I think it keeps the border more smooth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now I'm going to add stitches, and by doing that I like to use the knit front and back increase in garter stitch. I think it hides itself well and is the easiest one to do. So to do that, I'm going to knit in the front. I'm not going to push the stitch off the left hand needle. I'm going to knit in the back of the same stitch, and then I'm going to push it off the left hand needle. So I had 1 stitch and now I have 2. And I don't want those increases right on top of each other. I want to spread them out. It just makes the fabric look nicer. Let's see that increase one more time. It's a knit front and back increase, abbreviated KFB. Knit in the front of the stitch like you normally would, but do not push it off the left-hand needle if you're right-handed, vice versa if you're left-handed. Knit a second stitch in the back leg or loop of that same knit stitch, and now push it off the left hand needle, and you have increased 1 stitch. So make sure that you've done your increases evenly spaced across, and then count your stitches to make sure that you have the right number. You're going to have 178. As is often the case here on Yarnspirations, we have the instructions for this written out both in text and as a stitch diagram. Now, I am a big fan of stitch diagrams for pattern like this because that is a lot of text to figure out. And it makes perfect sense and it's beautifully written, but it's so much easier to read the chart if you can stand to do it. So all we need to know about this chart is the empty squares are knit on the right side, purl on the wrong side, and the squares with the dash in them are purl on the right side, knit on the wrong side. So we're going to follow, see it says 14 stitch repeat. So we're just going to do that as many times as we need to get to the end of the row. Let's also note that there is always a 5 stitches of knit, a garter stitch border at the beginning and the end. So it always starts with 5 knit and it ends with 5 knit. Now those 5 and 5, so those 10 knit stitches are not on the chart. The chart is the texture stitch, does not include the border. All right, but it's super simple to do. So let's look at the first row. I would knit my 5, and then it would be, this is a right side row. So it's going to go purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, all the way across. So I don't really have to count. I'm just going purl 1, knit 1 all the way across. Let's take a look and see what that looks like in the text. First row, knit 5, purl 1, knit 1, repeat from asterisk across to the last 5 stitches, knit 5. So that is easy enough. So I'm going to knit 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then purl 1, knit 1 all the way across to the last 5 stitches, and then knit those last 5. If you want to, you do not have to, but if you want to, you could put a stitch marker after the first 5 stitches at the first border and before the last 5 stitches for the second border, and that would remind you, give you a little visual clue that you want to knit those 5. Now for the second row, we've turned the work. It is a wrong side row, so we are going to read the chart in this direction. And so we're on the wrong side. Those blank ones are going to be purls, and the squares with the dashes in them are going to be knits. So I'm going to purl 2, knit 1, purl 1, 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 knit 2, and then go back to here, purl 2, knit 1, purl 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 times, and then knit 2. And we're going to do that over and over and over, once again making sure to knit 5 at the beginning and 5 at the end. So let's take a look at that in the text. Second row, knit 5, purl 2, knit 1, purl 1 5 times, knit 2, repeat from asterisk. So when you're comparing a text pattern to a stitch diagram, usually what is in the asterisks is the same as the marked pattern repeat on a stitch diagram. So let's take just a brief look at the second row. We're going to knit 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then purl 2, purl 2, knit 1, purl 1 5 times, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, knit 2, 1, 2, and then we go back to the beginning, either the first asterisk or the beginning of the stitch repeat. Purl 2, knit 1, purl 1 5 times, etc. till you get to the end of the row, and you will have those 5 stitches left for the second border. So I have knit a few more rows of the chart so you can see the pattern starting to build up. And that's really all there is to this. You're going to just keep knitting that pattern, and in the same way that we had a 14 stitch repeat, we have a 28 row repeat. So every time you get to the end of 14 stitches, you knit those 14 stitches again. When you've completed 28 rows, you go back to row 1. When you get to the very end, you're going to decrease the same number of stitches that you increased at the beginning border, and that's all written out for you, and you're going to do that final border and cast off knitwise. At that point, all you have to do is weave in your ends. So thank you so much for joining me for the Stack Up Blocks Knit Blanket. I'm Mary Beth Temple from Hooked for Life, here for Yarnspirations. Please like this video and subscribe to the channel for fresh content weekly on knitting, crocheting, and other yarny stuff. Feel free to click on some of those social media buttons below and follow us. And if you'd like us to see what you're working on, please use #Yarnspirations. Thanks so much for joining us. Bye-bye.